I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. At a press briefing yesterday, New York City Mayor Eric Adams decried liberal bail reforms alongside NYPD Commissioner Keechant Sewell. Adams called to the current state of the criminal justice system, quote, insane, and pointed to the current law in which whether a defendant is a threat to public safety is not taken into consideration during sentencing. The sharp rebuke of the city justice system by Adams, a former NYPD officer, comes as continued violent crime plagues the Big Apple. Adams was elected last November, largely due to his promises to curb violence following a sharp uptick under his deeply unpopular progressive predecessor, Bill de Blasio. Getting crime under control will likely determine Adams' political future.
Is the police department doing its job? Let me change that question mark into an exclamation point. Over arrests have increased by 24% for a total of 109,000 arrests by August 1st of this year, as compared to 87,794 arrests made during the same period in 2021. Arrests for 7 major felonies are up by approximately 29%. Firearm arrests are at a 27-year high. NYPD has taken over 4,300 illegal guns off our streets by the end of July. And the numbers of murders and shootings are down for the year. What's not working are the other three pieces. They say the definition of insanity is to do the same thing repeatedly, but expect different results. Our criminal justice system is insane. It is dangerous, it is harmful, and it's destroying the fabric of our city. Time and time again, our police officers making arrests, and then the person who is arrested for assault, felonious assaults, robberies, and gun possessions, they're finding themselves back on the street within days, if not hours, after arrest. And they go on to commit more crimes within weeks, if not days. We want to be clear here. This is not merely a reform of laws, action, and call. Every piece of the criminal justice system must use the tools that are available to them. And this is not attacking some of the needed reforms that we had. This is about a small number of people that are taking advantage of the existing laws to endanger our city. Under the current law, judges are not allowed to consider whether someone is a threat to public safety when deciding whether or not to hold them in custody. This is a big mistake. New York, as the commissioner stated, is the only state in the union that is not unified on the power of public safety as a prerequisite to how we judge these cases. As a result of this insane, broken system, our recidivism rates have skyrocketed. And those who say that the predicted wave of recidivism wouldn't happen, and the studies that claim to show that the rate of arrests for violent felonies has not changed since the reforms were passed, I have one word for you: wrong. You are wrong. Let's look at the real numbers. In 2022, 25% of the 1,494 people arrested for burglary committed another felony within 60 days. Within 60 days. That's 393 people who did the same. In 2017, however, just 7.7% went on to commit another crime. For grand larceny, in 2022, the 60-day recidivism rate was 16.8%. 310 people, compared with just 6.5% in 2017. For grand larceny auto, the rate is 20%, 125 people. In 2022 compared to 10.3% in 2017. Look at that graph, look at that chart. Burglaries almost tripled. Grand larceny, look at the numbers. Grand larceny auto, petty larceny. So from the days of the reforms to where we are now, these numbers are not lying. And it's just a small number of people who are abusing the righteous call for reform. Then when it comes to guns, this year, 2,386 people were arrested with a gun. Of those, approximately 1,921 are out on the street. Arrested with a gun, out on the street. Gun arrests in custody, 19.5%. Out of custody, over 80%. Over 80% are out on custody. How do you take a gun law seriously when the overwhelming numbers are back on the streets after carrying a gun? This year, 165 people were arrested with a second gun charge. Of those, 82 are out on the street. Not one gun arrest, but 2 gun arrests back out on the street. In comparison, in 2019, we arrested 80 people for a gun crime who had an open gun arrest. And in 2021, the number was 259. In 2019, we arrested 20 people for a shooting who had a gun arrest. In 2021, the number was 77. Triple. Between 2020 and 2021, all of New York is arrested and charged with a gun crime. 1 in 4 were ultimately rearrested, or at least on at least one occasion following their arrest. The numbers get even worse when it comes to more serious crimes, with repeat offenders numbers in some categories having doubled or tripled since we put in place the call for reform. And let's not forget the everyday New Yorkers, lost in this entire conversation. I keep saying this over and over again. No one is talking about the victims. No one is talking about the victims. All we hear is, how do we ensure those who commit crimes get justice? How do we ensure those who are the victims of crime get justice? Can we have that conversation? And unlike other studies, our analysis does not artificially lower the recidivism rate by counting in low-level, one-time offenders, or by looking at short windows of time to determine whether an individual reoffends. Our analysis focuses on the drivers of crime and the drivers of violence. Sadly, each crime, as I say over and over again, represents a person. And it's not just about the laws, and I want to be clear on that. It's about every piece of our criminal justice system. 100% of our system needs to be focused on keeping our children safe. The children who have committed most crimes should not be treated as adults. We said that over and over again. But repeated offenders must be identified and removed from harming other children. There's a real increase in the number of young people who are the victims of some of these crimes. This is not about 90% of the offenders who benefited from the reforms. This is about the small number who are using the reforms to continue to inflict violence on our city. And what's our plan for them? That's the question. No one is talking about that. No one that's making the laws, no one that are sitting on the bench, and no one that should be aggressively prosecuting these cases. When it comes to violent repeat offenders or offenders who have multiple serious arrests, we have a situation that is almost unsustainable. This is unsustainable as a city. And that makes us less safe. It also undermines the morale of our communities and the police department that's sworn to protect them. And I know about proper policing because I fought for proper policing. As a police officer and a member of 100 Blacks in law enforcement, we could have safety and justice. They go together. We are going to recognize the progress of the system that reforms our criminal justice system. But we have to be honest about acknowledging how do we go back and make the necessary alterations. Soon as we mention those alterations, people believe we are attacking the true reform that was needed. And that is not what we're doing. We have a relatively small group of people who are recidivists, and they are exploiting these reforms every day. They're making us unsafe. They're taking advantage of a system that does not adequately account for their criminal records. We acknowledge this, and we must adjust to this. That's the only way we're going to deal with this crisis. New Yorkers demand a higher standard for safety and justice, and we're ignoring the calls of New Yorkers. I promise to listen to those calls as we govern this city and as we protect this city. But we cannot do it alone, and that is what we're doing right now. The NYPD is doing their job. They're fulfilling their obligation in the criminal justice system. Every other piece of that system must do their job. That is how we move towards a safer, more productive citizen. These repeated offenders are dangerous to our city, they're dangerous to our recovery, and they're dangerous to the children and families of the city. And we need that message to be clear. This is not a battle against those who saw the need to reform a criminal justice system. This is a battle against those who are exploiting those reforms. Our laser focus are on those repeated, recidivist, dangerous, and violent people. That is what we're focusing on. And we cannot turn our backs on New Yorkers as we pursue them.